Welcome. Settle in, get comfortable, and let the day drift away. Tonight, we'll follow the world of Tom Wambsgans, a man navigating a family full of power, ambition, and chaos, where every word and gesture carries weight, and survival is a careful, constant calculation. The first time we meet Tom Wambsgans, the Roy family is preparing for Logan's birthday. Tom stands outside a small shop on Madison Avenue, hunched slightly, staring meticulously at a display of leather goods. His suit is navy, carefully pressed, but the fit is new to him. The shoulders are sharp, the sleeves slightly long. He shifts his weight from one foot to the other, adjusting a cuff link, and then turns to Shiv for guidance. He asks what to buy her father, what might be meaningful to a man so hard to please. The question is earnest, almost awkward in its humility. He watches her face for clues, the slightest flicker of approval, and in that moment, we see him as he will remain. Eager to please, attentive to signals, always measuring, always calculating the smallest ways to align himself with the currents of the family. When he speaks, his Midwestern vowels have not yet fully adapted to the sharper Manhattan cadence. There is a careful precision to his words, as if each one carries weight beyond its sound. He watches, he listens, he records, not just mentally, but physically, in the posture of his shoulders, the tilt of his head. In the shop, the leather smells faintly of polish and sun-warmed hides. Outside, the city moves with indifferent speed. Tom is present in it, but not entirely of it. He is tall enough to command notice, but his attention is elsewhere, focused inward, on the unspoken rules of the family he is about to join. The day moves forward in careful, orchestrated steps. Logan's birthday approaches, and the penthouse fills with energy and undercurrents. Roman's jokes slice through the chatter. Kendall's gaze measures, steady and cool. Shiv's presence is both instruction and quiet assessment. Tom keeps his movements deliberate, adjusting a tie, clearing his throat at the right moment, offering a nod here or there. Small calibrations that signal awareness without demanding notice. He carries a bulky gift box, a watch for Logan, carefully chosen. When he approaches to hand it over, Kendall intercepts him, and the moment dissolves. Tom steps back, holding the box like a prop in a play he has yet to learn. Amid the flow of the party, Tom notices Greg Hirsch for the first time, a young, gawky cousin, awkwardly hovering on the edges of the gathering. Blood related, yet just as distant from the inner circle as Tom, Greg's nervous energy is immediately familiar. Tom registers it, quietly noting the boy's presence, a small acknowledgement that they share a kind of unclaimed space in the family's orbit. The family moves toward the cars that will take them to the waiting helicopters. Tom remains in his own orbit, the gift heavy in his hands, noting the rhythms of interaction, the small signals of approval or disinterest. At the field, the traditional softball game unfolds. Kendall leaves the game. Roman fills the spot with the groundskeeper's son, offering him $1 million check for a home run. The boy swings, misses, and Tom tags him out. Colin discreetly has the boys' family sign an NDA and gives them the watch Tom had carried all morning. The gift, intended for Logan, becomes a quiet instrument in the family's game, a subtle introduction to the world Tom is now part of. By the end of the day, Tom has noted patterns, measured responses, and cataloged small wins and losses. The watch, the handshake, the missed moment with Logan, they all settle into a ledger in his mind, part of the careful tally of how proximity, timing, and perception define his place in a family he is still learning to navigate. As the last of the guests depart and the day's commotion fades, Tom lingers in the quieter corners of the estate, carrying the weight of observation like a ledger he keeps only for himself. He traces the unspoken hierarchies, the brief shifts of attention, the small openings that might later be noted or preserved. Even as the laughter and conversation recede, the patterns remain, and Tom feels the first faint pulse of accountability settle on him. An understanding that being on the edge of this family comes with both opportunity and expectation. He meets Greg Hirsch in a windowless records room lit by fluorescence. Greg is a cousin, but distant enough that the family tree requires footnotes. His movements are all elbows and apologies. Together they feed folders into the shredder. Paper bits cling to Tom's shoes, his leather contrasting with Greg's scuffed sneakers. Every folder contains a secret, and Tom keeps count quietly, a private ledger. He does not look at the names. He only feels the weight of them, the responsibility, the knowledge that he is now part of the machinery that can ruin people or protect them. Greg's presence is awkward but familiar, a reminder that Tom is not entirely alone in his position on the edges of the family. Upstairs, in Waystar Royco's glass headquarters, Logan Roy sits at the head of a table. His eyes settle on Tom for a moment, and the room feels colder. Logan's sentence, "Parks and cruises keep the ships afloat," lands on Tom's shoulders and stays there. He notices the smells of leather and polish, the faint residue of old money and the distance between the family and him. Shiv lingers in the doorway afterward, her hair catching the light. Her presence is a reminder that approval is measured and conditional, that love is a strategy. At home that night, Shiv pours 2 glasses and explains the value of her father's approval. Tom laughs and stops, careful with the space in the closet where their clothes hang. Silk and cashmere brush against wool and cotton. Below, the traffic moves, the river flows, and somewhere the bright star engines churn water that has forgotten the names of those who disappeared into it. Tom watches a ferry cross the river. The lights blink in a rhythm he cannot decode, but the uncertainty feels familiar. Weeks pass in calls, audits, and tours. Tom learns the language of liability, non-disclosure, material risk, reputational containment. He walks corridors where crew members have vanished, witnesses to contracts and NDAs signed in triplicate. He stands on the bridge at dusk, watching the wake churn white behind the ship, feeling the first cold hint of complicity. Back in New York, the family gathers for Thanksgiving. Roman mocks him. Kendall watches him. Shiv offers a brief intimacy, then retreats to the next calculation. Tom notes the patterns, the gestures, the rules of proximity and approval. He knows where he stands, a man tolerated, necessary, but peripheral. Greg is near him, always slightly behind, and Tom notices how the cousin mirrors his own marginality. Their relationship settles into something quietly hierarchical. Tom elevated just enough to feel the difference. Greg grateful enough, or naive enough, not to question it. Tom is more aware of that narrow gap than Greg is. He studies it, tends it, relies on it. In the space between their stations, Tom finds a fragile sort of safety. Together, they navigate an environment designed to test endurance and discretion. 2 men on the lowest rung taking cues from each other on how to survive the higher ones. The shredding continues in secret. Tom rises at odd hours, checking locks, counting the hours in ways no one else does. Shiv sleeps, unconcerned. Tom envies her calm, and wonders how long he can maintain his own. Spring brings a memo. Logan wants him to testify before a Senate subcommittee. Tom practices responses, adjusts his tie, perfects a tilt of his head to appear earnest. Shiv coaches him over takeout, her voice precise, efficient. The subtext is everything. Words like, "I love you," are unnecessary. The night before the hearing, Tom stands on the balcony of their apartment and watches the city breathe neon. He lights a cigarette he doesn't inhale, just holds it until the cherry burns down to his fingers. The pain is grounding. Below, a siren wails and fades, swallowed by the river. He thinks of the ships sailing again, of the folders reduced to confetti, of the way Shiv's hand felt in his the first time she introduced him as "my fiancé" to a room full of people who could buy and sell his hometown before lunch. This is what he signed up for. But somehow, or more likely, at some price, the hearing never happens. Logan manipulates outcomes behind the scenes, and Tom is promoted. Parks and cruises is his responsibility now, a collection of floating liabilities disguised as leisure. The title carries weight heavier than any promise or wedding vow. Shiv acknowledges it with a kiss and a word: family. Tom absorbs it, knowing he must earn it constantly, silently, in the hours no one is watching. Upstairs, in Waystar Royco's glass headquarters, Logan Roy sits at the head of a table. His eyes settle on Tom for a moment, and the room feels colder. Logan's sentence, "Parks and cruises keep the ships afloat," lands on Tom's shoulders and stays there. He notices the smells of leather and polish, the faint residue of old money, and the distance between the family and him. Shiv lingers in the doorway afterward, her hair catching the light. Her presence is a reminder that approval is measured and conditional, that love is a strategy. At home that night, Shiv pours 2 glasses and explains the value of her father's approval. Tom laughs and stops, careful with the space in the closet where their clothes hang. Silk and cashmere brush against wool and cotton. Below, the traffic moves, the river flows, and somewhere the bright star engines churn water that has forgotten the names of those who disappeared into it. Tom watches a ferry cross the river. The lights blink in a rhythm he cannot decode, but the uncertainty feels familiar. Weeks pass in calls, audits, and tours. Tom learns the language of liability: non-disclosure, material risk, reputational containment. He walks corridors where crew members have vanished, witnesses to contracts and NDAs signed in triplicate. He stands on the bridge at dusk, watching the wake churn white behind the ship, feeling the first cold hint of complicity. Back in New York, the family gathers for Thanksgiving. Roman mocks him. Kendall watches him. Shiv offers a brief intimacy, then retreats to the next calculation. Tom notes the patterns, the gestures, the rules of proximity and approval. He knows where he stands, a man tolerated, necessary, but peripheral. Greg is near him, always slightly behind, and Tom notices how the cousin mirrors his own marginality. Their relationship settles into something quietly hierarchical. Tom elevated just enough to feel the difference. Greg grateful enough, or naive enough, not to question it. Tom is more aware of that narrow gap than Greg is. He studies it, tends it, relies on it. In the space between their stations, Tom finds a fragile sort of safety. Together, they navigate an environment designed to test endurance and discretion. 2 men on the lowest rung taking cues from each other on how to survive the higher ones. The shredding continues in secret. Tom rises at odd hours, checking locks, counting the hours in ways no one else does. Shiv sleeps, unconcerned. Tom envies her calm and wonders how long he can maintain his own. Spring brings a memo. Logan wants him to testify before a Senate subcommittee. Tom practices responses, adjusts his tie, perfects a tilt of his head to appear earnest. Shiv coaches him over takeout, her voice precise, efficient. The subtext is everything. Words like, "I love you," are unnecessary. The night before the hearing, Tom stands on the balcony of their apartment and watches the city breathe neon. He lights a cigarette he doesn't inhale, just holds it until the cherry burns down to his fingers. The pain is grounding. Below, a siren wails and fades, swallowed by the river. He thinks of the ships sailing again, of the folders reduced to confetti, of the way Shiv's hand felt in his the first time she introduced him as "my fiancé" to a room full of people who could buy and sell his hometown before lunch. This is what he signed up for. But somehow, or more likely, at some price, the hearing never happens. Logan manipulates outcomes behind the scenes, and Tom is promoted. Parks and cruises is his responsibility now, a collection of floating liabilities disguised as leisure. The title carries weight heavier than any promise or wedding vow. Shiv acknowledges it with a kiss and a word: family. Tom absorbs it, knowing he must earn it constantly, silently, in the hours no one is watching. Roman, ever the orchestrator of chaos, had been tasked with planning the bachelor party, but discards the initial plan after Stewie extends an invitation to a private gathering in an abandoned New York railway. Kendall arrives late and visibly altered, while two of Tom's friends are turned away at the entrance. Tom promises them they will be reunited later, a small oath of loyalty that anchors him amid the swirl of family and friends. With Shiv's encouragement, Tom feels for the first time that he can indulge in the freedom promised to him. "Do whatever he wants," she says, a phrase that feels both liberating and vaguely perilous. Later, in quieter reflection, Greg asks what this actually means, and whether Shiv is allowed the same liberties. Tom hesitates, the thought of their arrangement making him uncomfortable. He calls Shiv, who reassures him without revealing the full truth. Her ex-boyfriend, Nate Sofrelli, is present, and his persistent flirtation escalates into an encounter with her. The logic of the green light between them, however, leaves Tom with a strange mixture of relief and unease. The rules are clear, yet the heart is less so, and Tom feels the subtle gnaw of uncertainty, of boundaries tested, of trust complicated, of his own position as both participant and observer in the family's shifting games. But the wedding is on. The castle at Eastnor rises from the English countryside. Tom steps from the Rolls-Royce onto gravel that crunches beneath his polished shoes, noting the way his suit gathers damp from the drizzle. For a moment, the world outside the family feels quiet, simple, until the doors open and the noise pours in. Strings, champagne corks, conversations measured in wealth and influence. Inside, the hall is vast, crowded with people whose presence Tom measures carefully. Chandeliers hang overhead. Guests in tartan sashes and pearls move through the room with the ease of people used to power. Caroline Roy glides past, her smile formal, her distance a reminder of what it means to belong here. Logan is in a corner, observing, present in a way that carries authority without explanation. When he lifts a glass toward Tom, Tom raises his own in return, unsure if the gesture is approval or warning. The ceremony is straightforward, almost mechanical. Shiv walks down the aisle. Her hand finds his with certainty. Rings are exchanged. The kiss happens. Roman makes a sound meant to embarrass. Kendall looks down. Logan claps once, short, measured. Tom notes every movement, every reaction, filing them away. Noticing, as always, where he fits and where he doesn't. At the reception, Tom circulates. He shakes hands, laughs at jokes he doesn't find funny, and avoids the moments that could make him stand out. He spots Greg near the dessert table, awkward and tall, and allows himself a small, quiet thought that it is comforting to see someone else slightly out of place, someone else learning the rules. By the time night falls, the bridal suite is quiet. Shiv removes her heels, pours champagne, and sits at the edge of the bed, patting the space beside her. Tom sits. She tells him, plainly, about the affair. Tom listens, maintaining his calm, measuring his response. She watches him closely, as if seeing whether he can remain steady. He does, or he convinces her he does. The second blow lands with quiet force. Shiv talks about freedom, about a marriage meant for movement rather than confinement. No jealousy, no cages, she says. Everything is measured, functional, practical. She traces the band on his finger, testing its weight. Tom listens, registering each word, the casual clarity of her expectations. Nate's presence at the wedding suddenly makes upsetting sense to Tom, but still he agrees. The word comes out before he fully processes it. Shiv exhales, settles back, and kisses him. He does ask her, though, after making a vow to the woman who now asks for a vow of non-monogamy, to kick Nate out of the wedding. She agrees, and he does so, perhaps feeling some power in this move, if he does not have much else in the marriage. Morning arrives muted. Shiv sleeps, her arm draped across the pillow. Tom gets up, barefoot, and checks the room, the windows, the doors, the tidiness left by the previous night. He finds a cigarette, lights it, inhales, and feels the tension ease slightly. His phone buzzes. A message from Jerry, confirming documents are secure. He deletes it without reading further. Outside, the estate begins to stir. Staff move quietly, removing evidence of celebration. A helicopter lifts from the grounds. Tom watches, noting the precision of it all, the way the world continues as if nothing had changed. He returns to the bed, careful not to wake Shiv, and lies still, cataloging what he knows, what he anticipates, what he must navigate next. Tom and Shiv cut their honeymoon short, boarding a private plane to the Hamptons with quiet efficiency. The family house sits understated behind hedges, a contrast to the castle's ceremony but no less exacting. Shiv goes inside to speak with her father. Tom waits in the car, noting the way the wind rattles the side mirror, the precise distance of the driveway stones. When she returns, she tells him Logan has agreed to move him to chair of Global Broadcast News at ATN. She says nothing of her own new position, and Tom files the omission away, a minor entry in the ledger he keeps for unspoken truths. Shiv raises the topic of their open marriage again. Tom does not respond at length. He complies, cataloging her excitement and the parameters she sets. It is easier for now to follow than to lead. Greg admits to Tom that ATN is not where he wanted to work, and that he does not agree with the company's values. Tom listens, noting every hesitation and misstep, and begins plotting a course. He meets with Sid Peach, the network's owner. She dismisses him almost immediately, labeling him a bureaucrat. Tom does not argue. He observes, calculates, and resolves to make an impression despite the cold reception. Later, he instructs Greg to identify inefficiencies. When Greg reports that the media library could be digitized, Tom counts the skulls that could be removed in his head, a private tally of potential leverage. The next evening, Tom and Shiv join Roman and Tabitha for a double date. Shiv casually reveals that Logan has told her she is best fit out of all her siblings to take over the company. He plays the role of the supportive partner, as he has always strived to do, though he has his own feelings of wariness, aware of the changing tides that swirl in Logan's mind. This is an especially sensitive time. Logan is already displeased that not everyone is fully committed to acquiring Pierce. No one has admitted their doubts to him, but he can sense hesitation. Furthermore, the anonymous leak to a reporter has sharpened his fury. He doesn't know that it actually Greg who is responsible, only that someone in his inner circle has betrayed him. At the lodge in Hungary, the tension builds. Shiv urges Tom to speak with Logan about PGM, reminding him, without saying it, that she has the information and he has the burden. Greg approaches with news from Michelle Pansel, begging for secrecy, and Tom firmly instructs him to keep it contained. Elsewhere, Kendall and Roman talk press strategy, adding another layer of uncertainty to an already volatile day. At dinner, Logan abandons pretense. He questions everyone about their true stance on the deal and about who spoke to the reporter. The moment he senses evasion, he orders the suspected dissenters, Carl, Greg, and Tom, to the floor. "Boar on the floor," he declares, turning the room into a hierarchy made literal. The three are made to oink and compete for tossed sausages as the others watch, shouting along. Logan's command is absurd, impossible to dignify, yet Tom cannot refuse. He moves into position, following the rules of the game with reluctant obedience. The others watch, voices raised, sausages thrown, the scene a spectacle of power and chaos. Tom does not win at boar on the floor, though no one ever truly would, but he is playing the long game. In the car, Shiv voices some concern with Tom about his new role at Waystar. As they approach, they pass protesters outside the building, chanting about Mark Ravenhead. Shiv worries he may have fascist sympathies. Tom observes him pragmatically. During the interview, Ravenhead confirms the dog name, insists on the counts of World War II casualties. Tom listens, calculating risks, but a gunshot cuts the meeting short. Everyone scatters, and he finds himself running alongside Greg. The safe room debacle begins almost immediately. They are ushered into the wrong room, Greg wide-eyed, trembling. Tom's stomach knots. Being in the wrong safe room is more than a minor mistake. It is exposure, vulnerability, a clear reminder that he is not fully in control, not fully in the inner circle. Every step feels magnified. He tries to assert command, insisting they move to the correct room, but security refuses. The sense of powerlessness grates at him. Greg is shaking beside him. He cannot afford to lose his composure. Accepting their confinement in the second-tier safe room, Tom gets his bearings, but it is in this moment that Greg sets him off again. Greg confesses that he wants a business-open relationship and intends to leave ATN. Tom's first reaction is anger, pure and immediate. He throws water bottles. He counts each one's trajectory in his mind, a fleeting attempt to regain control through physicality. After the adrenaline burns out, he exhales and considers the alternative. Letting Greg go is a loss, yes, but also a necessary calculation. He agrees, forcing himself to detach from personal disappointment and view the decision strategically. Greg's relief is palpable. Tom's unease lingers. When the Roy children return from England, Tom looks for Shiv, but she is preoccupied. At dinner, his work at ATN becomes the target of insults. Shiv, aware she has angered her father, flits from panic to calculation, searching for anything to calm herself. Tom tries to remain a stabilizing presence, but finds himself watching her more than the room, measuring reactions. Later, Greg informs him that their cruise response slogan is compromised. Tom processes the implications immediately: liability, optics, control. Together they consider alternatives, weighing legal exposure against public perception. Shiv arrives and confirms the cruise line trail. Tom is aware of his culpability. He recounts the chain of events: Mo, Bill, the shredding. Shiv reassures him, but he files her words as data, not comfort. Not long after, Tom realizes that the ATN questions hit harder than expected. Tom leaves to speak with Shiv. Her reassurances are measured, controlled. Meanwhile, he confronts Greg about papers saved for himself. The confrontation is tense. Tom threatens violence, not from instinct, but as leverage. When Greg admits they are at Waystar, Tom insists they destroy them together. The process is methodical, almost ritualized, and Tom notes the satisfaction in completion. At the family meeting, Shiv nudges Tom to flirt with Rhea. He complies awkwardly, aware of her observation, of his own discomfort, and of the performance expected. And the performance must continue. Tom's testimony is a crucible. Gil's aggression, questions about Mo, the missing documents, the presence of Greg, everything compounds. Tom panics at one point, even claiming not to know Greg. The fear in his chest is real, but he channels it into measured responses, aware that every word is scrutinized. At one moment, the infamous email surfaces. You can't make a Tomlet without breaking a few Gregs. It is read aloud in open court, the room reacting with a mixture of disbelief and amusement, and Tom endures it. His testimony completed, Tom breathes a sigh of relief, but only for a moment. Logan's continued presence and observation remind Tom that even leisure carries stakes. Breakfast discussions about scapegoats, Roman suggesting Tom, Kendall debating size, push him further into strategic thinking. How to navigate blame. How to maintain position. When Tom confesses his unhappiness to Shiv, it is unvarnished. He admits doubt and regret, but asserts his desire to preserve their marriage. Shiv's response is equally raw, guilt-tinged but willing. Later, Tom's minor act of defiance at the dining table, eating Logan's food, feels like reclaiming a fraction of control, a subtle assertion that he is not entirely disposable. He observes Shiv negotiating with her father, recognizing the precarious balance, loyalty, strategy, and perception all entangled. Some months pass, and we see Tom still trying to navigate his new position at ATN. He is officially in charge, but authority is a fragile illusion. Sid Peach dismisses him as a bureaucrat, and the staff treat him as a placeholder rather than a leader. Tom leans on Greg, instructing him to find inefficiencies, digitize archives, and streamline operations. Small victories he clings to as proof that he belongs. Yet the work never feels like his own. He is always aware that the family could turn on him in an instant. Shiv's ambitions hover over him like a storm cloud. She pushes the boundaries of their marriage, expecting compliance without discussion. Tom obeys, half out of love, half out of habit, but the unease never fully leaves him. He sees himself as the outsider in a family where power and cruelty are currency, and Shiv's career success only amplifies his sense of inadequacy. The Roy family's power games continue to define his days. Humiliation is never far away, and loyalty is a test he is constantly failing and retaking. When Logan faces legal scrutiny, Tom's position is clear. He is expendable. He agrees to take the fall, framing himself as the responsible party to shield the family and the company. It is a grotesque kind of honor, one that comes with fear, shame, and a strange pride. He is both protector and scapegoat, aware that the act cements his role in the family hierarchy. But Logan looks at him differently from here. There is a grudging respect in his father-in-law's gaze, a recognition that Tom is capable of both sacrifice and cunning. The humiliation is still there, but it now carries weight. Tom has proven that he can survive the family's worst, and in doing so, he becomes more than a pawn. He is dangerous, not because he seeks power for himself, but because he has shown he will take responsibility in ways the others cannot, or will not. It is a fragile elevation, one that leaves Tom walking the line between fear and influence, constantly aware that admiration from Logan can vanish as quickly as it appeared. Greg remains a complicated mirror. Tom mentors him, guides him, and occasionally manipulates him. Yet Greg's desire for independence, his wish to leave ATN, to work somewhere with values, forces Tom to confront the cost of his own loyalty. Letting Greg go feels like betrayal, but keeping him close feels like obligation. The tension between self-interest, mentorship, and moral compromise becomes almost unbearable. And Tom navigates it with the same mixture of anger and nervous calculation he brings to every decision. Public scrutiny grows sharper. Board meetings, testimonies, and interviews demand composure Tom doesn't always feel. Sleepless nights become routine. Tom lies awake imagining the worst. The courtroom, the press, the cold sterility of a cell. Every knock at the door, every sudden ping of his phone, feels like it could carry a subpoena or a summons. He replays every meeting, every memo, every shred of evidence that could be twisted against him. The anxiety coils in his chest, unrelenting, a constant reminder that the fall he offered to take could still come crashing down at any moment. And yet, slowly, cautiously, a reprieve arrives. Word reaches the company that the DOJ investigation is weakening and will likely end in a settlement. Relief and disbelief mingle. His fear of prison eases, leaving him exhausted but still watchful, aware that safety in this family is never permanent. Even as Tom tries to find his footing, the Roy children are stirring around him. Rumors circulate that Logan is considering selling Waystar, and the siblings immediately begin jockeying for position. Kendall wants to secure his leverage. Shiv calculates the political and professional cost of any move, and Roman flits between scheming and panic. Tom observes from the edges, anxious but also alert. These shifts affect him too. Every deal, every whisper could redefine his role, not just at ATN but in the family, in the hierarchy he's fought to survive. In a house where loyalty is measured in opportunity and betrayal, he realizes that stability is always borrowed, never guaranteed. He feels the pulse of the family's power plays and senses the fragility of his own leverage. He understands that survival is not about competing with them, but about demonstrating irreplaceable value to Logan himself. Every email he sends, every meeting he runs at ATN, every small victory in digitizing the network's operations becomes a signal. Tom is useful, competent, and discreet. In parallel, his anxiety over loyalty and betrayal intensifies. He recognizes that the same siblings plotting against each other are the ones who could undo him in an instant. He watches Shiv maneuver between promises and ambition, Roman jockey for attention, and Kendall oscillate between rebellion and compliance. Each interaction reinforces the lesson he has already internalized. In this family, allegiance is fluid, and anyone expendable is doomed to be a scapegoat. Tom sharpens his instincts, cultivating patience, discretion, and just enough assertiveness to avoid total invisibility. Logan notices the shift, not with affection, but with acknowledgement. A nod to Tom's value as someone who can be trusted to follow instructions without question, while also absorbing blame if necessary. By the end, Tom seizes an opportunity to secure himself. He aligns with Logan in a quiet, decisive way, observing his siblings' attempts to court their mother and preemptively cutting them out. When Logan reaches her first and alters the terms of the divorce settlement, Tom's calculation proves correct. He has chosen the side that ensures survival and consolidates power. The act is transactional, uncomfortable, and ethically murky, but it solidifies his role within the family hierarchy. Betrayal and loyalty blur. In protecting himself, he has protected his place. The lesson is clear. In the Roy family, alignment with power is survival, and survival demands uncomfortable, often morally ambiguous choices. But he knows Shiv knows it was him who broke her trust and went to Logan with her information. He sees it first in her eyes, a mix of disbelief, hurt, and that faint trace of calculation that tells him she's already assessing her next move. She doesn't scream. She doesn't confront him in the moment. Instead, she withdraws, her disappointment radiating in the space between them. For Tom, it is confirmation that he has crossed a line, yet it also solidifies the reality he has chosen. Loyalty to himself and to Logan comes at a cost. The weight of her gaze lingers long after she leaves, a reminder that every strategic alignment carries collateral, sometimes in the form of a spouse he once trusted. Even as he consolidates his position, Tom's nights remain sleepless. He lies awake, analyzing every step he has taken and every move yet to come, aware that one wrong impression or slip of confidence could undo him entirely. And yet, there is a strange pride in his calculations, a recognition that he has learned to navigate the chaos where others stumble. He is no longer merely a scapegoat waiting to be assigned. He is an actor, a participant in the family's game of power, learning when to step forward, when to step back, and, most importantly, when to align himself with the right side of the table. We meet the Roy family again 6 months later. Tom and Shiv are separated, though cordial in the way they both naturally are. Tom continues working closely with Logan, while Kendall, Roman, and Shiv are more a team than ever. Tom has been staying at their apartment, and Shiv stops by to pick up a few clothes one night, where they discuss the state of their marriage a bit. Shiv unraveling a bit more, saying she hears he's dating models, working out more, and always out with Greg. He doesn't entertain her hurt mockings and tries to be close with her. Instead, she says she wants a divorce. Their eyes are both wet with tears, but there is no fighting, no yelling, no last-minute confessions. Instead, Shiv lays back on the bed, and Tom lays down by her. They hold hands and are quiet, and it is perhaps more intimate than any other act. Soon after is Connor and Willa's wedding. Logan is not in attendance, instead choosing to fly to Sweden to meet with Matson. He is determined to have this sale go through. Back in New York, a yacht sits a mile off the coast. white and steady on gray water. Connor's wedding is already underway. Small tables, a string quartet, orchids tied to the rails. Shiv stands near the front in a pale green dress, smiling at guests who keep asking where her father is. Kendall nurses a club soda at the bar. Roman walks in circles, phone in hand, still fuming from Logan's last call. That call came on the yacht. Logan was boarding the jet to Sweden with most of the top team, Tom included, now a more prized member of the team, while Jerry and Hugo are left behind. Logan makes a call, telling Roman to fire Jerry and blame the crew's mess. Roman found Jerry on the yacht and delivered the news. She took it as expected for a woman such as herself, but her eyes said she knew it was personal. Roman left Logan a furious voicemail full of words he'd never say to his face. Another call from the private jet comes in, this time from Tom. There's a clear shift. His voice is flat, careful, and precise. The tone of someone carrying unbearable responsibility. Logan had collapsed in the plane's bathroom. The medic was doing CPR, and Tom was there, his hand on Logan's shoulder, kneeling on the narrow carpeted floor. The siblings, in shock and disbelief, crowded into the small bridge room, the phone on speaker. Tom held the receiver to Logan's ear, and one by one they spoke. Kendall first, the words tumbling out in apologies and promises, all the things left unsaid for years. Roman followed, cracking, faltering, exposing the rawness beneath his usual bravado. Shiv came last, trying to hold herself together, her voice trembling but firm. Connor was not brought in. All the while, Tom stayed still, steady, aware that the line in his hand carried the final bridge between life and death. The medic counted compressions. The defibrillator charged. The shock landed. Nothing changed. In that moment, the enormity of his position hit him fully. He was the one holding the phone, the one physically present as Logan left the world. The magnitude of responsibility, the helplessness, the isolation, it pressed down like a weight he could not shift. Every instinct screamed to do something, anything, but all he could offer was proximity, presence, the quiet reassurance of a hand on a shoulder. He could feel the pulse of history in that small cabin, the power of the man he had served, and the sudden, undeniable void where it once existed. On the plane, the executives immediately shifted into action mode. Markets would open in hours. Statements would need to be issued. Tom called Greg alone. His instructions were clinical. Delete files, stay close to Sid, maintain secrecy until the official announcement. And then, for a moment, the armor broke. His voice cracked, betraying the man behind the rolls, and he admitted he wasn't okay before hanging up. Later, the siblings told Connor. He stared silently at the water, saying that Logan had never liked him anyway. In a quiet, subdued way, Connor and Willa went ahead with a small ceremony. Just family, minimal fuss. The quartet played. Vows were spoken. And all the while, Tom carried a lingering sense of weight, the memory of holding the last line between Logan and his children, knowing he had witnessed the final breath and heard the last words. Even as the others departed by helicopter for Teterboro, Tom remained tethered to that moment, the phone, the carpeted floor, and the impossibility of unseeing what he had seen. The jet landed at dusk. Logan was gone on arrival. Reporters waited outside the gate. Shiv read a short statement the three of them had written. Roman checked his phone. Waystar stock was already falling. They hugged, quick and hard, then split apart. Shiv left with Tom. Roman walked to the body. Kendall stayed back, watching the ambulance doors close. The company drifted after that, or as much as a conglomerate could drift. Still, there was no clear leader. Board meetings, interim plans, the Gojo deal still hanging. Lucas Mattsson, tall, Swedish, owner of a streaming giant, kept calling. He wanted the sale, but he also wanted Shiv. At Logan's funeral, he stood near her, making quiet offers. Later, in Norway, he invited the siblings to his mountain house. They are in agreement that it is distasteful of him to ask for such a trip so soon after the death of their father. But they understand they must be as ruthless as he was if they want to keep what he had built. So Kendall and Roman push numbers. Mattsson raises the price. While Kendall and Roy are wary and planning their own feigning of a deal, Shiv seems persuaded. At night, Mattsson pulls her aside and gets to know Logan Roy's daughter. They get along well. While she originally would also have hoped to keep Waystar under the Roy name, Mattsson is persuasive, and her brothers are temperamental. Finally, Mattsson promises her the CEO job if the deal went through. Shiv holds this information. She is happy to. A life where she beats her brothers out of the title. A life bigger than Tom's. And she walks with a new air about her, and Tom knows. Shiv carries the information with ease. It gives her confidence, direction, a sense of momentum she hasn't felt in a long time. She moves through the party with the posture of someone who knows the future is tilting in her favor. It shows in the slight lift of her shoulders, in the calm certainty of her steps. She has something her brothers don't, and she is content to hold it close. Tom notices immediately. He doesn't need to know the details. He can read the change in her. He has lived beside her long enough to understand the meaning of her new composure. She is occupied, focused, and already living in a version of tomorrow where she is ascendant, and he is peripheral. It's the night of the pre-election party. Tom has become increasingly aware of the distance between them. Guests drift in and out, conversations happen around him, but he experiences everything with a thin layer of separation. He is present, but not included. He watches Shiv remain buoyant and self-contained, and each moment reinforces the quiet fact that he is not part of whatever is giving her this confidence. When they eventually step away from the crowd, the shift between them becomes impossible for Tom to ignore. Without the noise of the party as a buffer, he can see the outline of their situation clearly. She stands there with the unspoken assurance of someone who feels she is on the rise. He stands there with a growing awareness that he is not part of her upward trajectory. For Tom, the realization is slow and heavy. It is not new. He has felt versions of it before, but tonight it settles with a final kind of weight. He understands that he has been stretching himself thin for a long time, trying to keep the pace with a partner who rarely looks back to see if he's still beside her. He sees how much effort he has invested into stability, into partnership, into loyalty, and how little any of it matters in the face of her ambition. What hurts most is not her confidence, but the way it excludes him. She is energized by the future. He is exhausted by the present. She is already imagining herself in a position above her brothers. He is left to imagine where, if anywhere, he fits into that picture. Words are thrown out from both sides. Tom, tired of being the puppet. Shiv, convinced she doesn't need him. But even without the dialogue, the emotional distance is clear enough. Tom feels a mix of resignation and sadness. Not a dramatic heartbreak, but a steady recognition that something fundamental between them has eroded. Standing there, he realizes he may have reached the limit of how much he can give, and how little he can expect in return. The party continues. People laugh, the city moves, life goes on around them. But for Tom, this is the moment when the shape of their relationship becomes unmistakably, painfully clear. And he knows that whatever comes next, this night marks a turning point. Not just in their marriage, but in his understanding of himself in relation to her. She never thought of him as good enough for her. They sleep separately that night. The next day is one Tom has been preparing for relentlessly, Election Day. But it is this day that his estranged wife tells him the news. She is pregnant. The words don't land the way they should. They don't open anything. They don't soften him. They don't bring relief or joy or even fear in the usual sense. Instead, they fall into a space already overcrowded with tension, suspicion, and the remnants of last night's bitterness. For Tom, the timing feels too pointed to be accidental. He has been trained, by her, by the rhythms of their marriage, to look for the angle. So his first instinct is not wonder or excitement, but wariness. The news feels less like the beginning of something and more like another front being opened. It's a terrible reaction, and on some level he knows that. But the reflex is stronger than the ideal version of himself he wants to inhabit. He can't stop himself from thinking, why now? Why today? Why after everything she said? He can't stop his mind from treating the announcement as strategy, as though even a heartbeat could be deployed as leverage. And the tragedy is that he wishes he didn't think this way. He wishes the ground between them were solid enough that he could meet the news with any emotion other than defensive disbelief. But the night before left a bruise, and years before that left scar tissue. Tom has learned, the hard, humiliating way, that vulnerability in this marriage often costs him more than it gives. So, instead of embracing what should be a shared, intimate revelation, he braces himself against it. They both carry this information, an awkward, undeniable, added bulk to their days. The election votes are counted, and Logan's funeral is underway. There are other things to think about. And then it is the day of Logan's funeral. Tom is noticeably absent, a choice that speaks volumes about where he stands. According to the recap, Tom stays behind at ATN, buried under the chaos of post-election fires, rather than joining Shiv and the siblings at the church. This isn't just a scheduling conflict. It underscores his priorities and the fragility of his place in the Roy world. Tom's absence at the funeral highlights a profound unease about the future. He's not just physically elsewhere, he's emotionally distant. By choosing work over family mourning, he reinforces his identity as someone whose value comes through loyalty to business, not blood. It's a bitter paradox. He's deeply entwined in the Roy power struggle, but when it comes to legacy, he isn't there in the traditional, familial way. Later, when he finally reconnects with Shiv, he apologizes for missing the service. But he defensively claims he already said his goodbyes, telling her he was the first one with Logan on the plane after his death. That line is telling. For Tom, intimacy with Logan was transactional, tied to work more than family affection. He frames his grief in professional terms because that's where he feels he belongs. Still, there's a softer layer to his apology. He's visibly worn out, not just from working, but from constantly trying to secure a place in Shiv's life and in Waystar. The grief is there, but it's tangled with ambition, exhaustion, and insecurity. He's not just worried about power, he's worried about being useful, about being seen, and about what happens to him once Logan is gone for good. For Shiv, his absence and his defense may sting, but she offers a quiet moment of kindness. She tells him to go home and rest. one of the first moments of tenderness Shiv displays in a very long time. It doesn't fix what's broken. Their marriage remains precarious and transactional. But it reveals that beneath the power games, Tom and Shiv still carry something close to care. But this doesn't stop Shiv from working to a new future for herself. As the final pieces of Waystar's power puzzle falls into place, Tom finds himself navigating the same precarious landscape he had spent years trying to survive. This time, however, with stakes higher than ever before. Shiv, emboldened by her dealings with Matson, exuded confidence at her mother's estate. She believed her brother's maneuvers were faltering and that she was in control. Yet she casually dismissed Tom's potential interference, describing him to Matson as a highly interchangeable modular part. It was the kind of cold, clinical assessment that had always both frustrated and motivated him. The same assessment that reminded Tom why he had learned, after years of servitude and submission, to survive by reading between the lines rather than speaking them aloud. But Tom's mind was elsewhere. The shadow of Matson, the uncertainty of his future, gnawed at him relentlessly. Tom carries his anxieties in silence, though they are profound. The fear that the company might yet see him as disposable, that his years of loyalty could be discarded with a single boardroom decision. Greg, for all his naivety, leans on Tom, always aware of their hierarchical dynamic, and assuming Tom would surely be around no matter the company changes. It was a comfort to Tom to be a comfort to someone else. He could no longer do so in his marriage, but there was comfort in the predictability of Greg's nervous questions, the way he clung to guidance, even if it was scattered and imperfect. It was a soft spot in a life otherwise defined by ruthlessness. Tom is surprised with an opportunity for clarity when Matson invites him to dinner. The contrast between them could not have been starker. Matson sprawled comfortably in the chair, exuding effortless control, while Tom tried his best to remain composed and impressive, striving to offer the answers his potential boss wanted to hear. But then he took a more candid tone. He admitted his worries openly. He worried. He worked because he worried. And Matson's relaxed, almost amused attention underscored the gulf between experience and inexperience, power and uncertainty. In this, Tom was recognized by Matson in the way he endless strived to be recognized by Logan. Tom's loyalty and anxiety could be tools, and also shields, if handled with care. He was valuable. Then came the pivot. Matson revealed his thoughts on Shiv, undermining her presumed inevitability. He confessed that the familial continuity she represented was less essential than he imagined, and, casually, suggested that Tom was the best alternative, a capable frontman who could occupy the role of CEO without threatening the broader plans of the company. Tom's reaction was a careful blend of shock, composure, and acceptance. He understood the offer for what it was: recognition, power, and an acknowledgement of the subtle skill he had honed over a decade of survival in the Roy orbit. Meanwhile, Greg hovered nearby, desperate for reassurance. Tom told him he thinks they would both be okay, even if Greg's trajectory would come with a substantial pay cut, and the younger man found a momentary comfort in Tom's assured poise. But the game was not yet won. Greg's anxious curiosity led him to the bar, where he overheard Matson speaking in Swedish. Through a translation app, Greg realized with sudden clarity that Shiv would not inherit the CEO role she presumed to have secured. Acting swiftly and unaware that it was Tom who would be the replacement, Greg reached out to Kendall, delivering the critical intelligence. The Roy siblings, in their fractured and competitive dynamic, could not ignore even Cousin Greg when the stakes were this high. Kendall called around to confirm the information, and only then did Shiv, initially incredulous, understand the magnitude of the betrayal. With Matson unreachable by phone, she reluctantly agreed to support her brother's plan to install Kendall as CEO. When Shiv and Tom meet again, he maintains a practiced aloofness. A cordial good luck passed between them, a shield for the deeper truths neither could fully articulate. Yet, as the conversation pressed on, Tom's careful facades began to slip. Shiv is open that she will no longer be working with Matson, and Tom cannot hide what he knows. Half-formed thoughts, casual suggestions, and a teasing mention of her replacement culminated in the final reveal. "You should probably know. It's me." Shiv's reaction was immediate and visceral: shock, rage, and a string of expletives. But Tom, ever the observer, recognized the hypocrisy and inevitability of her anger. In his eyes, her response confirmed not weakness but familiarity. She would have done the same, given the chance. He let her storm off, swift and decisive, leaving Shiv to reconcile betrayal and pragmatism on her own terms. Greg, central to the leaking of critical information, became the focus of Tom's attention. Pulling him aside in the privacy of a bathroom, Tom reminded him that the Roy family's awareness of the news gave them time to strategize, to create an opposition that could secure their positions. The exchange was equal parts mentorship and sibling-like squabble, a reminder that despite the chaos, Tom had assumed a role of authority not just over the company, but over the people he had come to care for in his own complex, protective way. Kendall, feeling the pressure of the moment, took the lead in Logan's office, attempting to marshal votes and consolidate support. Roman, stricken and vulnerable, sought comfort in his brother's embrace, highlighting the tender but overshadowed bonds between the siblings. The boardroom votes were painstakingly close, hinging finally on Shiv's decision. Even as she requested a pause, the tension of the glass-walled room betrayed every movement, every word. In a sudden crescendo of power dynamics and familial emotion, Shiv confirmed her refusal to give Kendall her vote, sending the company and the siblings into a new configuration of authority. Tom emerged from the chaos with a renewed presence, standing taller than before, carrying the weight of a position few had expected him to claim. As handshakes and congratulations were offered, many of them half-hearted due to disbelief of the underdog, Tom's focus remained on the few whose loyalty and presence mattered most. Greg comes through the crowd, sharing his timid congratulations before nervously inquiring about how it's all looking. Tom doesn't just brush him off. He stops, crouches slightly to meet Greg's eyes, and gives a rare, unguarded smile. "I got you," he says, but it's more than a casual reassurance. It's a promise. For years, Greg has been the malleable, awkward, often overlooked presence in the Roy orbit. But Tom recognizes something deeper: loyalty, perseverance, and a kind of fearful courage that mirrors Tom's own survival instincts. He knows that in a world of sharks and power grabs, Greg's naivete can be weaponized if guided carefully. Tom intends to keep him close, not because Greg is competent yet, but because Tom can mold him, protect him, and, in the process, ensure he's never entirely alone in navigating the brutal waters of the company. As he speaks, there's a quiet mentorship in Tom's tone. It's subtle, almost paternal, but there's also a warmth, a recognition that Greg has, in his own bumbling way, been indispensable. Tom will let Greg stumble, will let him grind through mistakes and awkwardness, but he will also shield him when needed. Greg's usual nervous smile falters into something a little more confident, a glimmer of trust that's been hard won. In a universe of betrayal, backstabbing, and moral compromise, this is one human connection Tom can genuinely rely on. And for Greg, having someone of Tom's cunning and presence in his corner transforms fear into opportunity, vulnerability into a strange kind of empowerment. Their bond, fragile and comical in many ways, becomes one of the few stabilizing constants in the storm of Waystar Royco's new era. The final moments were measured, deliberate, and understated. Press photos were taken, and Tom leaves the building to his waiting vehicle. Tom enters the car, Shiv already inside, and the tension between them was tangible. Looking out her window, she gives him a congratulations which he brushes off in a casual manner, though it is clear to everyone how the dynamic has changed. But here they are, CEO and Waystar royalty, living a lavish, complicated life that they will soon bring a child into. Tom reaches out his hand, and though their eyes do not meet, she accepts it. The silent gesture of shared hands on the center console bridged a gulf of power, history, and personal entanglement. It was an acknowledgement, neither full embrace nor rejection, of a new dynamic neither could entirely predict. Shiv's trace of defeat contrasted with Tom's confident composure, a visual testament to the culmination of his long, careful climb. From the modular, interchangeable part, her mother had dismissed to the very seat of power, commanding respect, loyalty, and, finally, agency, in a world that had always kept him just below the line of notice. And that is the story of Tom Wambsgans. From awkward beginnings and endless tests of loyalty, through humiliation, fear, and sleepless nights, he carved out a place for himself in the stormy world of the Roy family. He survived, he adapted, and in the end he claimed a space that was entirely his own, proving that cunning, patience, and a little bit of heart can carry you further than brute force or birthright. Tom's journey is a story of survival, compromise, and the strange human victories that can exist even amidst a world of chaos. And now, as the lights dim on the Roy Empire and the echoes of boardroom battles fade, Tom sits taller, steadier, and more certain of himself than ever, ready for whatever comes next. And with that, our story comes to an end. Good night, and let tomorrow come gently.